running for many years.
I'd start off my contribution in a rather unusual way by quoting the great scientist Einstein. And he made quite a surprising point when he was asked, what is the most important attribute of a scientist? And he said the following: imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. He went on to say, imagination is more important than knowledge. Not that Einstein discarded facts, discarded knowledge, but you have to draw conclusions from those facts in an imaginative way in order to envisage physical, scientific processes as they develop.
The significance of the Lindsay oil refinery strike, which has been commented on many times already in the paper and even this morning, I think lies in the fact that it's the first major strike in Britain since the onset of the economic crisis, and more significantly, a victory achieved at that. A victory despite much confusion and a lot of contradictions, but a victory essentially at base against cheap labour, against the undermining of national agreements and terms and conditions, a victory against social dumping, and a victory against the race to the bottom. A victory against the multinational oil company Total that own Lindsay oil refinery, a victory against New Labour and European Union neoliberal policies.
Thank you, Rob, and it's a great pleasure to briefly address your meeting today and explain politically where we're coming from with the proposal which the Executive Committee of my union has adopted last week, which is to support the slate of candidates in the forthcoming June parliamentary elections, based around a political platform entitled No to EU, Yes to Democracy. The situation is substantially different from what it was even a year ago. Under the impact of the financial crisis, under the impact of the recession, and most importantly of all, under the impact of the incredible fight back by workers in Lindsay and Staple and the Isle of Grain, we're seeing that it is absolutely essential at this point that trade unions and socialists say there's a fight going on.
The shop stewards recommended that the issue stay in procedure. The workers walked and the shop stewards resigned. That is how this strike started. What it meant was the strike started without any leadership. There was a complete vacuum for the first 2 days, and it was that vacuum, that void, that was filled by the British Jobs for British Worker handbills, A4, copied off printers off the Fairfax website, a website for construction workers, not an official union, not an unofficial union website, but an industry website which a small minority of workers look at. But most of the workers had already reacted against the way their dispute was being reported. And most conversations started with, this isn't about racism, it's not about the foreign workers, it's about the national agreement, it's about the trade union. The BNP were bounced off the picket line on the Monday by workers themselves. So that reaction by the workers against the reporting of the strike as being racist, or even anti-foreigner, combined with the Socialist Party intervention, especially the role of Keith Gibson, he was not only on the strike committee, but he was the main spokesperson of the strike committee.
Marx was right when he said that capitalism will produce internal tensions that will lead to its own destruction. Young people today are faced with a recession where a lot of them won't know of any different type of financial state whilst they are growing up. So the Youth Fight for Jobs campaign has been initiated at exactly the right time.
Soon people were talking about working to rule. No one takes a lunch break, and if they did, the whole place would fall apart. Loads of people work 13-hour shifts back to back, and the whole home relies on people breaking the law. If we stopped, then there would be a big mess.
The working class needs to take to the road of struggle. Lindsay demonstrates that in a marvellous fashion. Really, and what it demonstrates above all is that only this party is capable of intervening when the working class moves in a complicated situation and separating out what was essential from the inessential. The SWP just lighted on British jobs for British workers that was raised by Brown, let's remember, at a Labour Party conference in an attempt to outflank the BNP. They saw that as the main trend, whereas we saw this as a struggle against the race to the bottom of workers who were looking for a way. Our intervention meant that that was pushed aside. Marvellous, as Keith explained, linking up with our Italian section, they even printed our leaflets, some of these organisations, on their own site, saying this is the authentic voice of the working class. It is, but it's the authentic voice of the Socialist Party and the Committee for the Workers' International as well.
If you need any confirmation that what our role is, what our duty is in this situation, is to get on the side of workers who are having a fight against bosses. And this... And I'd like to pay respects in this context to the Socialist Party, and particularly Keith Gibson and others who've played a very positive role as socialists on the picket line up at Lindsay, and indeed at other districts as well. And we recognise that. And we believe that the time now is that we have to have a political platform in the elections in 3 months' time.
This was a magnificent strike. It was unofficial. It was illegal. And it spread like wildfire. It took everybody by surprise. At its height, 22 different sites were affected the length and breadth of the UK, affecting not just in England, but Scotland, Wales, and I think Larne in Northern Ireland as well.
These are not just protests, elemental outbursts of the working class. Yes, they are, but they graduate something far more serious if one takes the medium and the long term. When Trotsky was speaking in 1938, he said, if you would have told me within 10 years we would be facing an objectively pre-revolutionary situation, I would have considered that utopian. But on the basis of the slump of the 1930s, of the mass movements of the working class, the question of revolution was posed in a number of countries. We're at the beginning, not just of a reawakening of the working class, but with the idea of socialist change, of a social revolution, will be put on the agenda, not just in Greece, where we have, in a sense, the elements of a pre-revolutionary situation today, but also in Britain, yes, sleepy Britain of the past, because the hammer blows of events will compel the most advanced first of all, and through them, the mass of the working class, to think out the problem first of all, to ponder what is happening, to search for alternatives, and they will beat a path to our door if we do it in the right way. And on the basis of that, also fashion and develop the subjective factor that can change the situation, can become a century for socialism and Marxism. We're now going with the grain of history. Let us seize all the opportunities here, and through the discussion and the debate at this conference, let us lay the basis for a stronger force that can intervene in the movement and build a powerful force of Marxism in Britain and on a world scale in the period of